The important points with the month of Ramadan and such gatherings that we have is to return back to the Islamic Sunnah, to Islamic lifestyle. We as Muslims, we live with other people, and because of what they call it the global village, that people are very integrated in so many things, in the cultures, in the communications. The point is that predominant culture and ideology is by the liberal culture and liberal civilization. And it's by its different aspects that it has affected our lives as well. We do some Islamic rituals, but at the same time we have lots of non-Islamic codes in our lifestyle. So gathering in such majalis, one of the outcomes is that we can return back to the Islamic lifestyle that we have. Tonight I'm going to refer to one of those things that is not Islamic, but it has been influencing us even though we didn't know about it. And it is the issue of confession. At the beginning, when you hear the term confession, you may think that confession is something that belongs to the Christians. But in fact, this is one of the things that the modern culture has imposed on us, and we knowing or unknowingly sort of practicing it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran in Surah Al-Isra verse 70 says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. Allah says, we honored children of Adam. There is a karama, there is a dignity and respect for the children of Adam given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are dignitaries, we are honored. Because we are honored, Allah wants us to keep this honor with us. This is one of the greatest blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are not allowed to hurt it. If you have credit, if you have reputation, you cannot say it's mine, I'm going to spoil it, I'm going to damage it. You are not allowed. It's haram. You cannot do something against your credit, against your respect. This is a quality given to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of that, even Quran and Hadith teaches us, if we happen to commit any sin, any failure, any shortcomings, any mistakes, the only one that you can talk to, you can confess, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In different places in Quran, Allah admires those people who confess to their sins and failures before Allah and ask for forgiveness. In Surah At-Tawbah verse 102, وَآخَرُونَ اعْتَرَفُوا بِذُنُوبِهِمْ. And the others who confess to their sins before Allah. خَلَطُوا عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَآخَرَ سَيِّئًا. They had good actions, they had bad actions. عَسَى اللَّهُ أَن يَتُوبَ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah says, if you have any shortcoming in your life, if you have any failure, come to me and ask me for forgiveness. In Surah An-Naml verse 44, when he talks about Bilqis, she said, قالت رب إني ظلمت نفسي وأسلمت مع سليمان لله رب العالمين. Allah is admiring that lady when she confessed before Allah and said, oh Allah, I was a wrongdoer before that. I didn't know what is right and what is wrong. And I used to wrong myself, and now I am confessing to any shortcoming and failure from my side. In Surah Al-A'raf verse 23, talking about Adam and Hawa, قال ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. They asked Allah for forgiveness. The famous one, Yunus alayhi salam, وَظَنُّونَ إِذْ ذَهَبَ مُغَاضِبًا. When he was angry, when the plight didn't come to his people, he left them. Allah punished him for that. Then when he was in the darkness, Allah says, the darkness of the stomach of the fish, or in fact the darkness of being in the anger of, under the anger of Allah. فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. Oh Allah, I was a wrongdoer. You didn't do anything wrong, it was me who wronged. Then Allah says we forgave him and give him rescue. When he talks to Ya'qub alayhi salam, story of Ya'qub, when he had pain, he had hardship with him, when he lost Yusuf, قال إنما عشق بثي وحزني إلى الله. I just tell my grief and my distress to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I talk to Allah about my pains. I don't talk to people. So you see that these are some examples that in the Islamic lifestyle, in the Islamic culture, if you have done anything wrong, you shouldn't talk about it to people. If I happen to commit any sin, it's not permissible to go to people and talk about the sin. This is not permissible. Of course, this is when it is a secret between us and Allah. There are cases that some social rights or some people's right is involved, then if you have done anything wrong, you have to confess. If you have done something wrong to somebody, you damage somebody's property, you cannot say, okay, it's between me and Allah, I don't tell anyone. No, then you have to say, you have to confess, and you have to recompensate for that. Allah mentions the story of Yusuf alayhi salam when he was accused by those women and he was in jail. After all those stories, when the Pharaoh wanted to see him, he said, I will not come. وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ أُتُونِي بِهِ فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ الرَّسُولُ. When the messenger of the Pharaoh went to Yusuf alayhi salam, that king wants to meet you. You are honored to meet the king. He said, no. قَالَ ارْجِعْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَاسْأَلْهُ مَا بَالُ النَّسْوَةِ الَّتِي قَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. First, it has to be clarified. What was that story? My reputation, my credit should come back to me. Then here in this story, the wife of the chief, she had to be spoiled. قال ما خطبكن إذ راودتهن يوسف عن نفسه قلنا حاشا لله ما علمنا عليه من سوء. He was pure. قالت امرأة العزيز الآن حسحس الحق. This is one of the most beautiful verses in Quran. الآن حسحس الحق. Now it's the moment of the victory of truth. After all those ups and downs, when you stay with truth, no matter what is the price, there will be a moment that truth will be victorious. الآن حسحس الحق أنا راودته عن نفسه وإنه لمن الصادقين. So here Allah is about to say that, yeah, Yusuf wanted Zulaykha and the others to confess to their sins and to show and to prove that Yusuf was sinless. Or again in the story of the brothers of Yusuf, Yusuf wanted it to be clarified and to be known by their father and by the others that what was the story. Then those brothers went and confessing to the father that we made a mistake when we hurt you and Yusuf. قالوا يا أبانا استغفر لنا ذنوبنا إنا كنا خاطئين. These are some cases that somebody else's right is involved, so confession is okay. But other than that, we are not allowed to confess. And there are many verses that shows how much this reputation of people is important. One of them is the story of Maryam alayhi salamullah alayha. فأتت به قومها تحمله قالوا يا مريم لقد جئت شيئا فريا. They said, you did something terrible. What you have done with this baby with you is terrible. يا أخت هارون ما كان أبوك امرأ سوء وما كانت أمك بغيا. Your parents were nice people. Why? Why you did this? Then she referred to Isa alayhi salam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this story, it was so painful for Mary فَأَجَاءَهَا الْمَخَاض, when the pain of the childbirth came to her. فَأَجَاءَهَا الْمَخَاض إِلَى جِزْءِ النَّخْلَةِ, the pain took her to the trunk of the palm tree. قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا وكنت نسيا منسيا. I wish I died before and I was totally forgotten. There was no name of me in anybody's mind. This is about a quality which is called haya, decency or modesty, that Mary and Maryam salamullah alayha has that much haya that she, deep from the bottom of her heart, she says, I wish I was dead and I couldn't see such a moment in my life. So we are not allowed to confess, and this culture, the outcome of it in our lifestyle is haya. Haya is not shyness. Usually shyness is a passive quality. Some people are shy. Some people are shy, they cannot speak in front of people. When somebody ranks them, they cannot speak to get their right back. They cannot defend themselves. So shyness is a passive quality. Haya is active. Haya is a state of soul that you decide by your free will to take a specific lifestyle of modesty. So to translate it as shyness and these things are not accurate, and it will not deliver the point. When it comes to the other side, in the Christianity, you know that from long ago they had the idea and the issue of confession. And they used to go to the church, you enter a room, sometimes there are veils, sometimes there are not veils, like Protestants that they believe in openly confession. The Catholics know to confess with a veil that you're not eye to eye and face to face. But anyhow, you confess about whatever you have done, especially those, that kind of sins that adults do. Then after mentioning them, then you're forgiven. And if any payment you have to pay. This was in their lifestyle till the late 19th century, in 1880, by coming of Sigmund Freud. Freud, what he did was that he took the confession of the church into his scientific and academic approach in psychoanalysis. Now you were not confessing in a room, in a private place. You were laying on a bed before the psychoanalysis, closing your eyes and doing the same confession that you used to do in the church. Now that confession was brought into science of psychology. And later on from psychology, they brought it into everything. When you look at the history of Christians, you see that Saint Augustine, he has a book by the name Confessions. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, another philosopher, he has a book on confessions. So they have written is a kind of self-confession, autobiography, to confess whatever you have done. And the confession, when you confess to other people about whatever you have done in your privacy, the immediate impact of it is that it removes haya from the society and from people. You're not embarrassed anymore about what you have done. And especially when their specific anthropology and philosophy also was added to it, the Darwinist socialism, that we are animals like the others. We are animals, but the animals at the top of the pyramid. Then you are not that much different from the other animals. You are a clever animal. You are a smart animal. You are an animal that can exploit the other animals, but you are an animal. So with that anthropology of animal, so Foucault says, Michel Foucault is one of the influential philosophers of Western culture. He says that in the modern time, we turned into confessing animals. From the thinking animal of the Greek philosophy, at the modern time of the West, we turned into confessing animal. And this is the modern man, This is the culture that you have to follow, then you are alien. Foucault says what Sigmund Freud did by bringing confession into psychology was quite right. And he says this was one of the elements to give freedom to human being. And he says there is nothing in your personal life to be embarrassed about. There is nothing that you should be embarrassed about. There is nothing like that. Whatever you have done, you can be outspoken about it. You can speak loudly about it. You can talk to people about it. And that's it. And he says this technique of confession is one of the most virtuous and valuable techniques in creating and producing truth in Western culture. This guy, he himself was, had some problems from these rainbow issues, and he died because of HIV. And later on, lots of men, sued against him that he didn't tell us. He was with us, but he didn't tell us that he was affected by HIV. And he is one of the greatest Western philosophers that today, your youth, they have to go to universities and study their ideas and their things, their thoughts, and to be a thinker. He says we confess or we have to be forced to be confessed. He says there was a time that when they wanted somebody to, usually when they arrested an agent or a spy or something, the criminals, they used to torture them to confess. So there was a time that they had to be tortured to confess, and now even you can confess when you love something, you're interested in something, or in any aspect of your life, you have to confess. And he says that Western man should be developed by being a confessing animal. Then they brought this confession into different aspects of the lifestyle. Sometimes even we don't notice. You go to school, you go to university, you have to write exams. This is a kind of confession. You have to confess whether you are learned or not. You got it or not. You have to write dissertation. He says even dissertation you write is a kind of confession. You are confessing about whatever you have learned. Then he says this is how our civilization is developed, by confession. You have to confess, and there is nothing to be embarrassed about. And this is how our culture is. Then he says we brought it into politics, we brought it into literature. The literature that usually in the past was about some, bravery of a person, some noble thing, and now our literature was about confession of a person about his individual life. And these individual confessions made people get deep into individualism, individual life. I am not embarrassed. Whatever I have done, it's not your business. It has nothing to do with you. And then everybody is his own individual life, and they don't care about the other. And at the end, there is a social mess. But they call it the modern life. And he says this is confession that gives freedom, while the dictators, they try to keep you silent. So the freedom is that you can confess about whatever you have done and whatever you can do. Then later on, they brought this ideology of confession into everything. And by the modern technology that they brought, modern ways of confession came to our lives. Just if you look at the social media, every day you and me, we are confessing on the social media. If you go on a trip, if you go to a party, if there is a birthday, if whatever story, simple, small or big, happening into your life, you are confessing to it. You yourself, by your own free will, you are putting the images, the videos on your Instagram, on your, the other social media, and everybody should know about your very, very individual and personal issues. And you see lots of Muslim people are also involved. And you see sometimes people, they're Muslim, but there are some pics that are very, very private. Why? Because of the predominance of this culture. It gets ordinary for us. This is what everybody else is doing, so it's okay. While in Islamic lifestyle, the most important thing here is modesty and haya. There are things that is only between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nobody should know about it. So when it comes to social media, when it comes to personal info, we have to be careful about it. This culture of confession, you see, it's so rooted in our lives that sometimes it's very difficult to run away from it. When you install any app, first you are giving permission to have access to your everything. Your passwords, your albums, your photos, your videos, your messages. And you're being, everything which is private for you is being exposed. And they can use it anywhere, anyhow. Now you see that you go and buy everywhere, you go shopping, you have to use the cards. You go to this scam, you go to clicks, they use the cards. Without the cards, it's a problem sometimes. And all your data is being recorded, and they are doing this confession to those places that they buy this data from them. So it's a culture, it's a civilization which is based on confession and confessing. And you see how far it is from the Islamic culture of dignity, of respect. And you see that how difficult it is to keep the Islamic lifestyle. So it's not, to be Muslim is not just a matter of performing salat or fasting.